Hello and welcome back to the CCENT journey with me, Ryan, and in this section we're going to investigate more into the Flash, USB and iOS image. So in this video what we're going to do is download an iOS image from Cisco's website, upload it into our Flash using a USB or TFTP, and then install it, reboot the box and go through that upgrade process, and then we'll investigate things like the boot command. For those who don't know, you can contact me here on YouTube, on LinkedIn or Twitter. So we're going to go ahead and run an iOS update on this guy, and first of all we need to find out which version it's running, and we can do the show version and it tells us that this is a Cisco iOS software C880. It tells us what version it's running currently, and we can see most importantly which image, so which system image is it using right now. And it tells us that on the Flash it has this image. It's a .bin file, which is the file extension we would expect for an iOS. And we can see by literally copying and pasting this and popping it into a browser, or using the Cisco website correctly rather than just a Google search, we can identify the version we're using and the version we need to upgrade to. So what we're going to do is we're just going to pop it straight into the search engine, and you can see here it comes up already with a downloaded software, and then it asks us to log on using our Cisco credentials. So I'll go ahead and get logged in. And providing you've got the right contract with Cisco, then you can download the iOS images that you require. So like I said, if we go back to the secure CRT and just make sure this is copied, and then back to our browser, and let's see if we can find it in here. So it's 15.2.4 M9. So the current suggested ones are 15.4 and 15.3. So we go to all releases, 15.2, 15.2 M, and then we've 15.2.4. So we're looking for this here. So there you go. So the release date of this particular iOS on this box is the 15th of September 2015. We can see both the Flash and DRAM, or also known as RAM, what the requirements are. So what we're going to do is we're just going to jump. Since this is actually a test equipment, it doesn't require review the release notes. I'm just going to go straight up to the suggested one, and as long as it's running the right route of Flash and RAM still, then we should be good. So I'm going to jump straight up to say this one here. Oh, and it is. So I'm just going to go ahead and download this image. I'll accept that license agreement, and it will download for me. Then once that download's complete, we're going to transfer it across onto the 887, onto its Flash, and then we're going to actually load the box using that image. So like I said, the prerequisite here is to make sure we have the right Flash and RAM. If this was a production environment, we would look at the documentation correctly. We would identify the release notes, find out if there's any bugs to this particular software that we may encounter that isn't on the legacy software. But again, since this is just a Cisco sitting on my desk and it's not really doing anything at the moment, we're just going to upgrade it and see how we get on. Now there are two ways we can get it onto the Cisco router. We can use something like TFTP, FTP, or we can use something like a USB stick. Now what we're going to do is we're going to use the TFTP option. I'm actually going to download TFTP from SolarWinds. So I know that SolarWinds uses a free split software that allows you to transfer TFTP files. So we're just going to go ahead and download this particular software onto the PC. Let's follow the wizard through to install the TFTP server. And what this will allow me to do is ultimately set up a local TFTP file server on this PC, give it an IP address, and then set the TFTP options in the Cisco, and then we can actually transfer the file over. So that's now set up. What we're going to do now is launch the application. So it's a very lightweight application. I'm going to go configure. It brings up this window. It asks us for the root. So here we're just going to put it into my desktop. And ultimately, we just need to ensure that the iOS image we've downloaded is on the desktop, because it won't be part of the TFTP server if we don't put it inside the root directory. So I'm simply going to move the file that we just downloaded onto the desktop. Then provided it's on the desktop and we have the directory in place and we have the TFTP server is started, the only thing we need to put in consideration now is if this was a production network, your TFTP server might be not so local to you. Therefore, you need to think about firewall and network reachability. So in this instance, our router is going to be directly connected on the same subnet, so we don't have to worry about routing. But if your TFTP server was obviously on a different network, or it was behind some sort of NAT or firewall, then we need to also put that into consideration when we think about file transfers. So I've plugged in Fast Ethernet 0 on the Cisco into a Draytech router. The Draytech route is actually part of my home network. And what we're going to do is set up DHCP on Fast Ethernet 0, and then we're going to get an IP address from the Draytech, and therefore the PC that we're recording on and my Cisco will be on the same subnet. And I would just simply be able to communicate using TFTP, and then we can set up the TFTP configuration as required on the Cisco. So we've got Fast Ethernet 00, and we know that by default, because I have no configuration on that box, it's inside VLAN 1. So let's just go to VLAN 1 and set up for DHCP. So here we're going to say interface VLAN 1. We're going to say give it an IP address, and can you go get it using the DHCP option. So you can see here IP address negotiated via DHCP. And now there's going to be the DHCP request out that port. The port is in the up state, and so is the VLAN, and it should hit the Draytech. Now the Draytech will give it an IP address, just like so, and the Draytech has no idea that this particular router is of course a router. It thinks at this point it's just a host, because I've done no configuration, no routing, no funky stuff. It's simply just something plugged into a Draytech port, and it's received an IP address just like it would if it was a PC. So now let's go find out what IP address my PC is actually on. And of course we can do that using the ipconfig command, and you can see that my PC is on the 192.168.1.20. So that's where we're going to actually query the TFTP server. So what we're going to do here is we'll simply going to first of all look at the directory of Flash, because it looks like there's some previous images already on there. And because the Flash is obviously a limited space, we need to delete any of the older images. So again, if I do show version, and then if I do pipe include this, what this pipe allows us to do is filter out a particular string inside the show command. So previously we done show version and it gave us a lot of output. We're using this pipe and the include, and then given it a match string of C80 data is able to come back with the single bit of information that we're after within the entire show version. And the reason we want to know which version we're currently running, because now I can delete the image, which is this guy here, knowing that that's not the image I'm using. So if I do dir, I've only got the image I'm currently using inside my Flash now. Now the way we copy things back and forth, whether that's between Flash and NVRAM or Flash and a remote server like TFTP or FTP, is simply using the command copy, because we're copying a file. And if you press copy and then question mark, we have lots of options to copy from, and we're simply going to put copy from a TFTP server, and then we're going to tell it where we want to copy to, which is going to be the Flash. Now there are a few ways that we can do this. First of all, if we press enter at this stage, it will take us through almost like a wizard, where it asks us the questions that we need to complete the transfer. Or alternatively, you can write out as a single string. So copy TFTP : / the IP address, and so forth. I like to do it like this. So we do copy from TFTP to the flash. It's saying here, what is the IP address of the remote host? Well, we knew previously it's the 192.168.120. We know that that's the PC that I'm locally on. It's asking for the source of the file name. So we're going to go back to the desktop and we're going to get word for word what the actual file is called, which is this guy here. Is asking, once it's put onto the box, what do you want the actual file to be called? And we're going to press enter here to accept what it is at the source, and then it's going to try to access using TFTP this particular box. Now what you'll notice is it probably is going to fail because my antivirus is not allowing obviously connections in on TFTP, or maybe my Windows firewall is blocking inbound connectivity for TFTP. So what I'll do is I'll go away and enable that, and we'll make sure that that transfer will actually work. You can see here it's come back and said error opening TFTP is timed out. So in a real production environment, this could be for many reasons. It's normally in a production environment that something is blocked, like there's a firewall not allowing TFTP transfers from the source that you're coming from. In my obviously small home network, it's probably just my local PC not allowing the communication out. So let's go to Windows Defender or Windows Firewall, whatever they want to call it now. And let's just turn that off. We'll see if we get that warning message. And let's give it a try and see what we get. So thankfully it remembers what you entered previously. Okay, so this time it's come back with something a bit different. It's actually said error opening the TFTP. This particular file didn't exist. So that's probably because I've got the wrong mapping set up on the TFTP. Oh, so you can even see here that we had the transmission fail because it was unable to find the particular file. But that's because it looked at where it looked for the file. So that's kind of the wrong place where we expected. So let's go to the configure. And you can see here it's gone back. So let's browse. Let's put it back on my desktop because remember, that's where we put that file. Press OK on that. And let's go back and give it another go. Oh, here we go. So now it's going to actually load that file onto the flash. So let's go ahead and wait for that to be done. So there we have it. The iOS image is actually being transferred. So we can see that it was successfully done. If we do dir, we can then see the new image just here. And now we need to verify it. So we do verify, flash, and then let's pop this one in. And then let's give it a moment to verify the integrity of it. Now that's completed, we can see the 2 hashes of the MD5 actually matches. Then we know that the image itself is not corrupt in any way and it's not been tampered with. Obviously we know it's not been tampered with in this case because I've just literally downloaded it from a reliable source, which is obviously Cisco's website. But it's always good to make sure that the file itself is transferred, especially when again we're working in a production environment here and we need to make sure that the image itself is up to scratch before we start putting it onto a box. So now we've got a few options. What we could do is we could do something which I don't recommend, which is deleting the old image from the flash. And if we deleted this image from the flash, then it has no option but try to boot this particular image. Or alternatively, we can use the boot system command and try to manually boot this image. So the way we do that is we use boot, system, flash, and let's ask him for the name. Let's give it this name here. And if we do show run, we can see here it has a boot start marker and it has the flash and it has the end marker. So what we're seeing now is that when we reload the box, it will try to boot the M10 as opposed of the M9 it has. So at the moment it's 15.2-4 M9. We want to go to 15.3-3 M10. So we're going to save the running configuration because, oh, bad practice there. Show run to the startup configuration. Again, I said this in the last video, don't use that command. Make sure you use the right command, the copy run to the start. This is a really bad habit of mine. Now you can see up here, we have the boot, and the boot command itself is in the running configuration. So it's important that we save that. And now when we reload, what we'll see is when it comes back up, it will try to boot that new image. So let's go through the reload process and see what happens. So it's now being rebooted. I left it for a while to just come back up. And we can see just here, we're now running the 15.3.3 M10. So it's actually picked up the right image. So again, show version. Just as expected, because if we do the show run, include boot, we can see it's just here. Look. So here we use the boot system flash to actually specify which one we want to boot. And like I said, if we were to delete that from the flash, so let's actually delete the new one. Let's actually delete the current iOS. So it's still running. And the reason it's still running, because remember, when we started up the box, it decompressed that image into the actual RAM. So it's still running right now. But of course, that run boot marker in the running configuration is no longer relevant, because it's actually, well, here we go. It's actually saying, warning, you're attempting to overwrite the NVRAM configuration, because NVRAM meaning this is where the startup configuration is. That was previously written using a different version of the system image. By pressing enter, we accept that warning, and then what it actually means is a heads up to let us know that the configuration, in this case the running configuration, has never been saved to the startup configuration since we've updated the iOS. So if there's any incompatibilities, this is why. But since that's now been saved, even though the boot marker still shows this, because we only have the old one in the flash, if we reload now, we'll see it actually boot up using the older one. So we're back up, and what do we have? It's running the old version again. And kind of we expect that, of course, because in the directory of the flash, we've only got the old version. Yeah. So what we're going to do now is plug in the USB stick, and we'll see how that differs then using the TFTP. So I've gone ahead and format a USB to FAT32, and it's a USB 2 because I had a bit of issues with getting USB 3 working on this box, but it's probably because it's a little bit older. And now if we do dir and USB, we can see that that image that I downloaded previously is now on a USB flash, which was inserted into the front of the Cisco. So what we're going to do is copy it. So where we're copying from a USB to the local flash. It's asking for the source of the file name, so we're just pasting this file name. The destination, we want it to be called the same, and then it will just copy off onto the local flash of the Cisco. And then you can run that verification again, and I'll delete the old one that's already on the flash and then reboot the Cisco, and then we should be back to where we were previously. So we can use USB or file application, file transfer protocols like TFTP and FTP. It's pretty straightforward. The key thing to remember really is which way you're doing the copy. So when you type in copy, you're always doing the from. So for example, if I wanted to copy from the Cisco flash to the USB, then I would simply put copy flash USB. It's always from and to. And just up here we can see version 15.3 M10. So what do? We primarily spent all of our time on the command line for this video. We talked about the directory using the dir command, for example the dir/flash, and we seen that the iOS is stored in the flash, and we copied and pasted the iOS image, the new one that we downloaded from a Cisco website, from the local PC using TFTP to the actual Cisco. And we done that using the copy command. We then typed in copy, we specified where it is being copied from, which is the TFTP, and then to, which is the flash on the Cisco. Make sure you remember it's always from and to. If I wanted to copy something from the Cisco to the PC, I would do copy flash TFTP. And then we had that wizard option. When we typed in copy TFTP flash and press enter, we then had the option to type in the IP address of the TFTP server, the file name, and so forth. But what you can do is type the entire string in. So you can see just down the bottom here, we've got the copy command and it's in entirety. So copy from TFTP, and notice the actual colon, and then // and then the IP address of the TFTP server, and then a single / with the bin file or the iOS, and then flash being the directory we want to copy this into. So we have the option to use the entire string. I like to use the wizard, it's kind of a bit more straightforward, but of course when you're doing a lot of these and you get used to it, that string is always a great alternative. We looked at that boot command. So if we have multiple iOS images in our flash, which one does it boot? Well, we can use that boot command in the running configuration to decide which one to boot. And if it's not there, it will fall back to anything that's in its flash. And that's what we saw again when we done the transfers. One thing I didn't talk about, at least not too much in depth, is to ensure the end-to-end reachability. So kind of we'd seen that actually when we were doing the lab. At first, my PC wasn't listening to the TFTP server, then it was, and then the TFTP server had the wrong root directory. But one thing that I didn't mention was the source address option. So another command that's part of the CCENT is, let's say we wanted to have the loopback to source the TFTP traffic, meaning let's say my loopback was 192.168.1.1 and I wanted to source the TFTP from this. Then in the global configuration, I can actually change the source using the IP TFTP source command. So I hope this video has been informative, and I'd like to thank you for viewing, and if it has been, please do like and subscribe.